Awesome. And we are live.
Hello.
Hello to everyone. Welcome in. We are starting just a smidgen early to let people come on in, but welcome. Let us know if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. But I hope everyone's day is off to an awesome start.
Yes.
Welcome, welcome.
It doesn't feel like Monday to me this week.
No.
I cannot believe it's still Monday. But it
I
is.
completely agree. And my birthday is actually tomorrow. So I
Oh,
feel
happy
that weird.
birthday
Thank you. I feel that weird kind of in between where I know tomorrow is kind of a holiday for me
for you.
personally.
Yeah.
So I am right there with you. I feel like it should be a Friday.
It should be. It should be.
Oh, well, welcome everyone. We're so glad to
Welcome.
have everyone come in to talk about making the most of short sailings.
Mhm.
Let us know in the comments if you have a short sailing booked, and if you do, how many nights is
Yeah,
it?
let us know.
Um, but we will go ahead and just get started with some quick introductions. My name's Rebecca. I am your admin in the Disney Cruise Line community in the Facebook group. So glad to have you here. And we are joined by the wonderful Chrissy O'Kane. Chrissy, if you want
Hello.
to introduce yourself.
I'm Chrissy O'Kane. I'm agent with Academy Travel and one of the recommended agents with the Disney Cruise Line Facebook group. I love this community. It's just my favorite, you guys. It's such a fun, inclusive community with all kinds of different people, and that's what's so great about Disney Cruise Line. It just appeals to everybody, and I love being a part of this community.
Oh, I am right there with you. I'm like, even I tend to side on longer sailings. Get me on the ship for as long as I
I
can be.
know,
But
I
even if I
know.
can only get on board for a couple of days,
Okay.
that is all right with me. Just get me on the ship. Uh, so
Yeah.
we will go ahead and get started.
We
I
have a lot
just
of
want to
3
say,
and 4 nights in the comments. Yeah.
oh, awesome. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this is great. Well, I'm
Mhm.
excited. You guys, oh, some people on the Wish too. Amazing.
Mhm.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who submitted questions
Yeah.
beforehand. We're going to do our best to get to all of those. Chrissy has some awesome tips on how to make the most on short sailings. But if you have any questions as we're talking, feel free to put those in the comments, or you can reach out to Chrissy directly. There's a
Absolutely.
link in the event, and when we are recording this, so if you need to refer back to it, we'll make sure to include a link directly to her page so you can reach out to her and ask any questions. So welcome everybody in. And I guess, Chrissy, starting off, are there only certain ships that offer certain number of night sailings on Disney?
Well, that used to be the case. But now that the fleet has grown, really, right at this very moment, I just pulled like every single sailing. So if you're flexible on dates, any ship except the Fantasy has some sort of short sailing offered. Also, if you're flexible on departure ports too.
Yes.
But the Fantasy is really the only ship that's not doing, a wide variety. It's doing 7 nights out of Port Canaveral. That's its thing. And it's good at it, right? We all love the 7 night
Yes.
fantasy sailings. But we have the Wonder currently in San Diego doing mostly 3 and 4 night Baja sailings. But there is, just throwing it out there is one currently available to be booked 2 night sailing on that ship. So if you are
Ooh,
really just looking, if you're in the Southern California area and you're looking to just have a nice date weekend, 2 nights on the Wonder. So fun. So fun.
yes.
The Magic's doing 4 or 5 and 6 nights, which isn't really short sailing. We said 3, 4, and 5 for this one, but it's doing 3, 4, 5, and I'm sorry. The Magic is doing 4, 5, and 6 nights out of Galveston. The Dream 3, 4, 5 out of Miami, and the Wish 3 and 4 nights out of Port Canaveral. So really, all your options.
Amazing.
Lots of
Yes, so
options.
lots of variety. You can try out the different ships. I know some people are going for, I think it's a Grand Slam, trying to
Yeah,
get on as many ships as
all of
possible.
them. Right.
So that's amazing. And we can go ahead and dive right in. The tips that you have are awesome. So we can start with tip number one.
Yeah, so really, I made what I would now, as an avid cruiser, consider a mistake. But my first time booking my own cruise as an adult was for a honeymoon. It was a 7 night sailing, and I went for like 3 years thinking that that's the minimum length requirement for a cruise. Like I wouldn't even consider something shorter. And part of that, I live in Virginia, so pretty much any port I need to fly to. So there's just a lot going on. But once we started to say, look, what are other options out there? Gosh, it's eye-opening how much fun you can have on a short cruise and what other things you can consider doing. So most people don't have like 10 or 2-week long vacation periods that they can take. As a teacher, prior to becoming an agent, I was able to, but a lot of people are not able to do that. So a short night cruise, 3-4 nights, gives you the option of arriving somewhere fun early and doing cool things before you get on the ship. This is such a cool way to have, obviously the Wish 3-4 nights out of Port Canaveral works really well for land and sea vacations.
Mhm.
My bonus tip, we often go to SeaWorld and Discovery Cove before getting on a 3-night out of Port Canaveral, because then
Great
we've already done
idea.
our swimming with the dolphins, and now we can just enjoy the ship, and we don't feel like, we need to even do an excursion in Nassau. So lots of things to consider there. Gosh, New Orleans, that's a lot of people's on their bucket list, city to go explore. And it's an easy city to explore in a day or two. New York as well. There's a lot of 5-night sailings out of New York. If you could just arrive a day or two early, now you have a week-long vacation, exploring somewhere new, and then getting on a ship and relaxing. So I really like the idea of a short night sailing. Gives you that ability to extend your vacation on either end. So a lot of people like to cruise first, actually. And then that way you kind of like get there, you get on the ship, and then you get back, and you can stay as long as you want, especially if you're driving. You can have some more flexibility on that end.
Amazing. Yes, and I always recommend getting in for your cruise as early as you can. So this
Absolutely.
is a great way to potentially add in a little
Yeah,
bit
add
of
in the extra
touristy
more.
time.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd love that. And the New York sailings, those are the ones going to Bermuda now, right?
Yeah, some of them are going to Bermuda, and some of them are doing Canada and New England. And there's a mix
Amazing.
of, and some of them are also Halloween on the high seas too. So you've got like a lot going on at once. Head up to New York for the
Yes.
fall, see the city, and then hop on a ship to either go north or south, either one.
Yeah. So if you want kind of a little bit more of fall weather, you want to see
Hmm.
the leaves changing, you've got an itinerary. If you want the beach, you've got options there too. I love it.
Exactly.
I've not done the Bermuda sailing yet, and I need to.
Oh, that's add that to
Um,
your list.
right?
Mhm.
Well, I love that tip. We can move on to tip number 2.
Yeah. So, getting an idea of what's expected on board. So, if you have cruised Disney Cruise Line before, you're probably aware of like what onboard activities are. But a lot of my clients that do a short night sailing, this is their first Disney cruise, and and that's not a requirement. I think there's a question coming up about like who are short sailings good for, and they're good for
Mhm.
avid cruisers as well as first time cruisers. But especially if you've cruised a different line and you want to try Disney out, a short sailing can be a really good way to get started, but you really want to be prepared and know what's on board. So preview a navigator from a previous sailing. It doesn't need to be your exact dates. Like don't try to go find your exact dates from a year ago. Just find another 3-night or another 4-night on the same ship. Look through the navigator, and see what the activities are, and decide what's important to you. Sometimes what's really popular isn't like priority to you, right? I always talk about like
Mhm.
I will be at every live action Broadway show. When I sailed on the Dream and they premiered Beauty and the Beast, I did sneak in to see it a second time, because it was just like so beautiful. um but
Yes.
plenty of other people didn't even go, and they had a great time too. I don't usually even go to the movie theater. It's just not my thing. I get bored
Mhm.
in movies. But other people are there with their popcorn every movie. This is their like thing. So think
Yeah.
about what's important to you and prioritize that. You don't need to be at every single onboard activity in order to experience the magic of Disney Cruise Line.
Absolutely. And I know we get this question sometimes of, is there such thing as over planning your Disney cruise? And I think that's where having a travel agent who's an
Oh,
expert, has
absolutely.
cruised before, can kind of help you navigate what's going to be most important to you and your family on the sailing. If you have a little one who just
Yes.
adores princesses, then maybe you might want to do some events that you have to sign up for.
Mhm.
If your kids couldn't care less about princesses, then you don't have to worry
Then
about
don't
that
worry
event
about
and
that
trying
royal
to
gathering.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's something
definitely
that you can talk
prioritize.
through.
Talk with your agent about, that's one of the questions I ask my clients. I ask, what are everybody, not just the kids, grown-ups too, what are everybody's favorite Disney characters? And also, what is everybody's favorite recreation activity? Are you guys pool people? If you're not, don't prioritize the pool just because it's there,
Yeah,
prioritize things that you enjoy.
which is a great segue into this
Oh,
bonus tip, because
yes.
I know I am a total relaxer when I'm on board. Get me up on deck with a
Hmm.
plate of chicken tenders and french fries, just enjoying the sun. So I love this one.
Yeah. So, a lot of times you're looking at the activities, and I even do this on board too. Like, I'm already on board, and my husband's like, "Hey, don't forget, we have a nap scheduled at 2 o'clock." Oh, yeah, that's right. Nap is scheduled. And sometimes that really helps. Just schedule time to say, listen, at this time, I am going to be on my balcony by myself having my coffee. Or if, we get tired, like, we're going to full on take a nap. It's going to be glorious. But,
Yes.
schedule that downtime. Look at the rainforest room passes, look at spa appointments, like, prioritize that downtime, because it is something that you can kind of lose track of once you're on board. There's so much going on and you want to do it all. But don't forget that a big part of cruising is being able to relax at sea and just take that time for yourself, because it's really magical and not something you can do on land.
Yes, absolutely. Don't be afraid to embrace the downtime on your
Yeah,
cruise.
love
You
it.
deserve it.
Mhm. You deserve it. Absolutely.
And we'll move on to tip number 3.
Yeah, so this one is, I mean, it's helpful for all sailings of any length, but really, if you just look at it from a purely statistics and mathematical standpoint, when there's only 3 or 4 days, that means that there's just less appointment slots for some things, specifically Beauty Bobbity Boutique. That's the one that it's there's 10 slots a day, so that I made that number up, but you know what I mean. So
Yes.
if there's less days, there's going to be less availability. Now, there's also generally less people, so it's kind of like up and it works out. But it's really important to be booking right when your booking window opens for those things, and talk with your agent about what's important to you. Sometimes I will actually strategize with my clients and say, okay, listen, I'm willing to do all of it for you, but if you want to go twice as fast, I will book these things and you book those things at midnight, and now we're done at like 12:03. Glorious.
Teamwork. Oh, I
Teamwork.
love
Yeah.
it.
But just really kind of, again, it goes in line with our previous tip: prioritize, right? And if something's important to you, be ready at 12. I know it seems so silly, or have your agent ready at 12 if that's an
Yes.
easier strategy for you. But have your agent ready at 12, or be ready at 12, because it really will book up at 12:10 or 12:15. It might be out. And for longer sailings, when there's just more sea days and there's more time, it's less of a likelihood that things will fill up, like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique or the sports simulator, less beverage tastings. So while there's the same amount of activities per day, just since there's less days, there's less activities to sign up for.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you made that point about working with your agent. I know that
Yeah.
I'm a super planner. So the idea when, I first started working with a travel agent to kind of like let go of that control, it
Hmm.
made me a little anxious. But knowing that I have somebody
Right.
that I can plan with and who's kind of a
Hmm.
partner in my planning rather than having all that stress on me, it just makes such a difference when you're trying to
Absolutely.
prioritize and make sure that everybody in the family, including you, is happy.
Yes.
Oh, amazing. And I know that we were talking about the Bippity Boppity Boutique, but something that's come up a lot is the Royal Gathering.
Yes.
So we want to answer this question about what should
What
you
should I
sign up
sign up
for in
for in
advance? And
advance? Yes.
yes.
So there's lots to sign up for in advance. Royal Gathering is probably one of the most popular events. And this is the kind of formal princess meet and greet that you do need to have a ticket for, even though it's free. You need to have a ticket for an assigned time, just because they have all the princesses in the promenade atrium. I'm sorry, I'm getting my brands mixed up, in the atrium at the same time. And so it becomes a little bit like, it's very high demand, and if everybody came at once, it would be traffic jam. So you do have an assigned time to go and meet all the princesses. So it is something that you do need to sign up for in advance. The other things to sign up for in advance, there's the Olaf picnic on the Wish. That one's super popular right now. And then
Mhm.
specialty dining is the other one that it can't hurt to sign up for it. You Even if you're just debating it on a short night sailing, sign up for it. You can always cancel 3 days prior to sail. And if you decide not to sign up for it, you do run the risk of it filling up, and then you don't get to experience it. So really, it can't hurt. Sign up for as much as you want ahead of time, and then review later. That way, that if something's important to you, you've got it booked. If something's debatable for you, well, I've got it booked so I can think about it. Other things to book
Yeah.
ahead: spa appointments, beverage tastings. Those also do fill up really quickly, some more than others, and it does seem to vary per sailing. Like, mixology used to always fill up right away, but now we're seeing the the champagne and chocolate one fill up really quick. So it's kind of like
Yes.
variable trends here with what's filling up first as far as those beverage tastings. But look through, like I said, look through the previous sailings navigator, identify what's important to you, and reserve it right away. Don't
Yeah.
wait.
Yes, it's not worth it to wait and then have to stress, and if
Yeah,
you do wait and you don't get a certain activity on board, you're still gonna have a great time. I know somebody
absolutely.
had, asked the question of, "Is it enough time? It doesn't seem like enough time." Even if
Hmm.
you don't book a single additional activity on board, you're going to have an
Oh,
amazing
absolutely.
cruise.
We half the time don't book anything. I just want to be on the ship in the ocean. I don't even need to
Yes,
get off. I am great.
right? Oh,
Yeah.
I am right there with
Mhm.
you. And I saw we got a question about what is
What
the
is the
rainforest
rainforest
room?
room? Yes. So the rainforest room is Disney's spa area on board. And you can access a rainforest pass for the duration of your sailing. This does not include spa services. This just includes access to the spa area, which has specialty showers, heated loungers, and a wonderful, calm environment to relax in. So it's called the rainforest room. I typically describe it to my clients as a relaxation room, and people are like, "Oh, I know what that is." But
Mhm.
Disney calls it a rainforest room. And it's something that the rainforest room pass can be purchased on board, not in advance. But that is just a great option to be able to lounge there. It's adults only, and just have your kind of like retreat. It's
Yes.
fantastic. So fantastic.
It is so calming. The sauna's in
Hmm.
there, there's different showers with the smells and the different mists. I mean, it is if you like to really
Really
relax, it's
rejuvenate and
yes,
just
it is worth checking
unwind.
out.
Absolutely.
And it looks like Christy asked, "How do you look through previous navigators?"
Ooh, okay.
Um,
Wow, we are fancy pulling these questions up on screen.
yeah.
So yeah, so looking through a previous navigator, if you're booking with an agent, this is something that most agents will help you out with. It's something that I do send to all of my clients as soon as they book. Like, here's a rough idea of onboard activities before we have that conversation of, hey, what do you want me to book for you? And they're like, what is there to book, right? But the fastest way is honestly to just Google it. Just, if you're booked on Wish 3 nights, just Google Wish 3 night, Bahamian Navigator. And now that it's in the app, you're going to be most likely redirected to a YouTube video of somebody scrolling through their app. But in the past, people would post the paper flyer online, and you could see that, and it's a lot easier, honestly, to view when it's all on one piece of paper.
Yes.
But once you're on board and you're seeing it in your own app, the app works great. But as far as viewing it in advance, so I often will still send a paper from like 2019 to my clients to look at, so they can really get an idea of like, this is what it all looks like together. Like, so you know
Yes.
at when you're scrolling, you kind of can't see how this is all kind of happening at the same time. There's characters here, then this is in Vibe, and this is in Oceaneer Lab, and it's the
Mhm.
paper displayed it very well. But yeah,
Yeah.
basically the first tip is to ask your agent, and then two, Google.
Yeah, and there's always the Facebook group. If you
Yes.
have a specific sailing, if you're not able to find something, post a question in the group, and
Mhm.
I'm sure someone in there has screenshots or a video
Of
that
there's
they
video.
can get
Yeah.
you.
Hmm.
Oh, love it.
Great question.
Yes, and let's see, I guess we can move on to tip number 4 if that works for you.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is really, something that I do on even on longer sailings, because I'm like maximum value. That's
Yes.
just how I am. Plenty of people are not like that. But yeah, consider specialty dining brunch instead of dinner, especially if you're on a 3 night sailing. If you think about it, again, mathematically, you have 3 nights, and there are 3 rotational dining restaurants. So if you don't want to miss one of those dinners, book that brunch instead of a dinner. Otherwise, you can still do dinner at Palo or Remy on one of these shorter sailings. Just maybe, book it after your dining time, so that you can at least go to the restaurant, have drinks and appetizers, just eat lightly, and then go out for your adults only meal afterward, or the other way around. Ultimately, most of you, if you're traveling with kiddos, you have to feed them at some point too. So you're probably
Yes.
taking them for dinner also. But scheduling brunch instead of dinner works really well. Also, again, if you're traveling with kiddos, that works really well. They can be at Kids Club. You can go to brunch, and then you can meet them after brunch and take them to get lunch at Cabanas or Marceline Market. And then you don't miss out on one of your rotational dining, that's included with your cruise. So again, I really like the brunch on any link sailing because I get to go to my fancy dinner every night at the main
Yeah.
dining restaurants. But plenty of people do both, and that's fine. On a short sailing, if you really want to experience everything, brunch is a great way to go.
Amazing. And
And brunch is
the
offered
brunch
on sea
is
days.
that you read my mind. That was going to be my next question. And the brunch is delicious.
Oh
I
my
don't think I've
goodness.
ever been in as much of a food coma as I have been after the Apollo
Palo
brunch. It
brunch.
is
It's
so good.
incredible. So
Oh,
incredible.
amazing. Well, that is the bulk of the tip. So if anyone has
Hmm.
any additional questions, feel free to put those in the comments. Oh, and we have one about food now. So
Yes.
that's a great segue. So is the buffet restaurant open for dinner or just the rotational dining available only?
So as of right this second, not yet. This was something that, like, was a big staple of Disney Cruise Line, that you could always go and have dinner at Cabanas in the buffet, no reservation needed. You just walk up, and their buffet transforms into a seated environment that's more casual for dinner. I would expect that to come back as soon as possible. It is one of the assets of Disney Cruise Line. There are other options though. And I've worked with, because I also specialize in special needs planning. Food schedules are sometimes very specific, and we really need to meet specific needs. So if you're afraid your girl might be sleeping during first seating, no problem. Communicate with your service team when you arrive. There's all kinds of options that you can do room service, or you can have her meal from main dining actually brought to the room. Like, all kinds of options that you can pursue to make sure that you have the best experience possible. If you're sailing on the Wish too, you also do have the barbecue joint by the pool. So check that out.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
right. Oh, yeah. So many options. And I mean, I know we have family who's little ones who have fallen asleep at the table
Yeah.
before, and the serving teams are so accommodating. They will
So
make sure
accommodating.
that your little ones are comfortable. I mean, I
Yes.
remember there was a tablecloth used as a blanket.
Mhm.
So
They
they
will
will
take
be
care of you, and
comfortable.
you will get fed. Absolutely.
Yes. Amazing. Well, we will keep rolling through these questions. So, first question, will they ever offer pricing for single people? I know sometimes for a quick
Well,
weekend getaway.
yeah. So will they ever offer it? I can't say no, and I can't say yes, right? I never expected them to offer third and fourth guest sale free, but then there they did
Yeah.
with Disney Plus. So you never know. I wouldn't say absolutely not. What I recommend for solo sailors is, one, to keep in mind that solo supplement, like, you do have a lot of space for your room. Disney Cruise Line does have some of the largest staterooms at sea. I still think it's an exceptional value, as far as when you think about everything that's included. And then the other option is to find a solo friend, and you can use this group. There are other solo cruising groups, to make it an experience that becomes, one, more affordable, and two, more enjoyable when you've got a buddy to solo cruise with.
Yes. And if you do not know about the third and fourth guest sailing free
Yes,
deal, reach out to Chrissy. She can get
absolutely.
you booked
Yes,
on
we
one of
can
those sailings because that
chat about
is,
those Disney Plus
oh,
discounts. I mean, never seen this level of discount from Disney Cruise Line ever before. So really, really, typical discounts are Florida resident or last minute, rates that have some restrictions. But these, no restrictions. It's just only for Disney Plus subscribers though, and it's only January through April of
yeah.
2023.
So if you're able to travel, then give Chrissy a call or shoot her an email because
Absolutely.
she can help you take advantage of those sailings.
Am I
And
finished?
next question, which I thought was a great one.
Oh, this is a
If
great
you're
one. Yes.
right, if you're traveling and you have a shorter sailing, is it even worth it to get off the ship when you have such a limited time on board to explore?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's something that you should talk with your travel advisor about, and also talk with yourself, talk with your family and your travel party too, and really ask yourself, why are you cruising? And I don't mean that to sound like, like, why are you cruising? No, like, what about cruising is appealing to you? Is it seeing the world? Then get off the boat, right? But if it's an enjoyable family time at sea, stay on. Really, either way, you're going to have a magical experience. When you've never been to the Bahamas or Castaway, I mean, I it's a rare situation that I would recommend staying on board for Castaway.
Mhm.
Very rare. I mean, maybe if you are like allergic to sand or something. I don't know. I don't know what would make me say you should stay on board at Castaway. Also, because you don't need to be ashore the entire day at Castaway, too. You can still go back on board. You can get off and run that 5K, splash your toes in the sand, and then hop back on board for the day if you want to. The ship's right there. So you can come and go Castaway as you please. And so I would definitely get off at least for part of the day. Bahamas, it's questionable, right? There's things you could do right at port, like the straw market, but most likely if you're doing an excursion, you're a bit farther from where the ship is docked. So you can't quite come and go as flexibly, but you could still just consider a half day to at least get to see something. If you've never been to the Bahamas, it's a great place to explore. Head down and see their city. It's beautiful, colonial city in there. Or plan a beach day and enjoy that. But if you're, cruising because you want to hang out with Mickey Mouse, stay on board.
Yes, there's nothing wrong. Well, I know we've
Mhm.
done cruises where we don't do a single excursion the entire time.
Absolutely.
We just want to relax. We still get off of Castaway because
Mhm.
Castaway is I know Disney is supposed to be the happiest place on earth, but Castaway gives it a run for
Oh
its
man,
money.
it does. We can call Castaway like the most relaxing place on earth.
Yes. Oh my
Just
gosh, yes.
so easy.
The best.
Mhm.
Uh, and we got this question from Lisa. What's the most important
Yeah.
activity you think anyone should do on a
Oh,
cruise? And
that's
that's
tough.
a loaded
Well,
question.
I mean, if you're asking me personally, it's the welcome aboard Sunday. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
that's like what I look forward to. That's how I know I'm on a Disney cruise. But as far as like the most important activity that I would recommend for anybody, is oh man, that's really tough. But as far as like official activities, you got to check out the diaper dash. It
Oh,
happens once per sailing.
the
Everybody's going to be
best.
watching those little babies try to crawl across, right? No pre-registration needed. Just show up and get your giggles on. Oh, it's so cute.
Yes.
And then other than that, like formal official registered activities, if you're going to be on board and you have the ability to do an adults only, consider Palo. Remy is a wonderful plus too, but Palo is really suitable for everybody regardless of tastes. Even the pickiest of eaters will find a meal there that they absolutely love. And it's an upscale experience that's not that high of an additional surcharge. So I really think that it's much worth the opportunity to go one night on your cruise or for brunch, one night or
Absolutely.
one
Yes.
afternoon.
Yes, I totally agree with you. It's tough to narrow it down, especially
Hmm.
not knowing you as a traveler. So I would say
Right.
that's something to work with your travel agent, narrow down what's going to be most important with you and your family, and just kind of talk through it. And I can
Hmm.
almost promise you, you're going to love it so much, you're going to want to come back,
Absolutely.
and then you can
Come
do
back.
everything else next
Hmm.
time. So
Noted.
question, is 3 nights enough given the investment? I know this is a popular
I know
question.
it's a very popular question, and this is what held me back from short cruises for a long, long time because it's not just the cruise cost, right? You're also your cost of arrival, travel to and from port, your hotel the night before. There are other costs that go into planning a cruise in addition to just your sailing cost. So some things that are better, right? You have however many days less of gratuities. Like there's some things that are financially better about shorter sailings, but it's still a big investment. And really, honestly, I could do a 7 night sailing and not feel like I had enough time on board. So,
Yes.
I do think that 3 nights is enough time on board if it's something that's feasible for your family. If you're like living if you're flying like 6+ hours or something like that, and this is a very inconvenient thing for you, probably not. Part of the appeal of short sailings is convenience. A lot of them are over the weekends, like Friday to Monday, so you don't have to miss as much work. Like there's a lot of things about short sailings that make them more convenient, and so really that's the angle that I see their value, not necessarily the extension of time on board. They're very practical for a lot of families with less vacation time or not able to take kids out of school, that type of situation.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and any time on board is a good thing. So if you can only get away for 3, 4, 5 nights, that will be enough
Mhm.
time. it'll be perfect.
Absolutely.
And I guess this is kind of a great segue into who are shorter sailings ideal
Oh,
for in
yes.
general.
Yes. So really, I mean, they're ideal for anybody. Like it's really, especially busy people. It's really hard to like, in large groups. That's the other thing. If you're traveling with like extended family, trying to find a week that everybody can do for a 7-night sailing can be really hard, especially if you are looking at multiple ages of kids. Like maybe one family has high schoolers and one family has littles, and maybe one family is college age. Like everybody's school schedule is going to be different, sports schedules. So short sailings are really good for larger groups, like multifamily groups, and busy people. Also, short sailings, especially those 4 nights, Disney does a great job scheduling 4 nights. The majority, not all, but the majority of them are Monday through Friday. So they are really well suited for the driving market. That means that you live within driving distance of port. My driving distance might not be what other people consider driving distance, right? Like I'm a 12-hour drive, but I'll do it if I have the weekend on either end of the cruise, right? That works great. So having
Yeah.
the weekend on either side does really help people that are driving. It really gives you that flexibility. You can leave Saturday, still arrive with Sunday at, before I even get on the ship on Monday. This just gives a lot of flexibility. And then the other thing is first time cruisers, especially if this is not your first cruise ever. You've cruised a different cruise line and you just kind of want to try Disney out. I heard it's pretty magical. I want to kind of stick my toe in the water, maybe hang with Mickey Mouse a little bit. But I've already seen a lot of the Caribbean. I've already done other cruise lines, and a short sailing can be really ideal for that as well.
Amazing. And if you just want to figure out sailing, I know a lot of people
Yeah,
are
figure it out.
hesitant
Is
about
it good for
motion
you?
sickness.
Absolutely.
Do a shorter sailing. See how your
Mhm.
sea legs are on board and just try it. It's worth it. You're gonna fall in love.
Mhm.
And that's another great
That's our
segue
next one.
into
Yeah.
yes. So what length of sailing would you recommend for somebody sailing for their very first time?
So for a first-time sailor, I don't focus as much on length as I focus on dates and port access, right? So if you're,
Amazing.
cruising for the first time, you really we're gonna first, and also budget dependency, right? A 3-night sailing is significantly less than a 7-night sailing. So there's a lot of factors that determine the best cruise for a first-time cruiser. Length is not one that I super dwell on because really it's going to be fitting the best needs for your vacation. So generally, like if you're commuting to Florida, like if you're cruising out of Florida, you've got all the options: 3, 4, or 7 out of Port Canaveral, 4 and 5 out of Miami. There's all different lengths to consider. So we want to focus on his itinerary, what ship is going to be the best fit for you. If you're looking at the Wish, well, that's the decision's made: 3 or 4 nights or back to back. So it really, a lot of other factors will determine the length of sailing for a first time cruiser, and all sailings will work. The only sailing that I would not recommend for a first time cruiser ever would be something that's 10 nights or longer. And the reason for that is that one, motion sickness is real, right? It is real. And so you do
Yeah.
want to kind of establish that before you sail. Or before you sail for that long. And two, these sailings are generally very like specialized itineraries. So I do get a lot of people coming to me about Panama Canal. That's a very popular one. I want to do this. It's really only something that you can experience via cruise. I've never cruised before. And I do suggest a teaser cruise beforehand. Do a 2 or 3 night, even if it's not Disney. Do a 2 or 3 night cruise, experience being out on the ocean, make sure it's a good fit for you, and then we can chat Panama Canal and make that work. Those are the only sailings I don't recommend for first time cruisers because there's so much involved with the extra planning. There's a lot more port days. Packing is a totally different ball game. Just a lot more involved. Anything 10
Yes.
or less, you're fine for a first time
Yeah.
cruise. We'll get you through it.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I know I sound like a
Mhm.
broken record, but that is why someone like Chrissy, who's a travel agent, who's an expert, can help you and your family figure out what's going to be best based on all the different factors. Because even once you decide on a ship or an itinerary, then you have to worry about where are you staying on the ship? When are
Oh,
you
yeah.
going? Like there's
So
so many
many
other
things.
factors
Yeah.
that go into planning. So don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Ask
Um,
away.
and then we got this
Oh, this
question.
is,
So
yes.
We have so many people
So many people
asking,
asking this.
should I do 7 nights on the Fantasy? It's coming
Yeah.
out to about the same as, 4 nights
Mhm.
on the Wish. What should I do?
Yeah. So really, so one thing to consider is that especially right now with the Disney Plus deal, since the Wish is not eligible and the Fantasy is, that can create a interesting price point situation where sometimes those Fantasy 7 night sailings are cheaper than the 4 nights on the Wish, and they are very different ships. And some people actually prefer the Fantasy still, right? It's especially if you're used to it and you've sailed it before. But really look at what's on board and determine your vacation based on the entirety. So a 7 night sailing is also going to have more onboard expenses. It also may or may not, depending on the itinerary, may have more port days, and that's more planning to consider. And so while initially they may seem the same cost, a 7 night sailing is going to have more of those additional costs and inclusions than a 4 night sailing would. Right, a 4 night
Yeah.
sailing on the Wish is like Nassau and Castaway, which you could do both of those for essentially free. So and 7 nights on the Fantasy is going to be Cozumel, Grand Cayman, and Castaway, or Tortola, St. Thomas, and Castaway, and those are going to be a bit more of an expense just because they're not the ports where you can just kind of get off and walk around. You got to kind of book something or at least hire a taxi. So there's a lot more
Mhm.
planning that's going to need to go into that 7 night on the Fantasy. Still going to be a glorious, wonderful sailing through the Caribbean, but there are going to be additional costs to consider. They're not necessarily going to be at the same price point. If you've never sailed before, I would go with the shorter sailing on the Wish. It doesn't have to be the Wish, but that's what we're seeing a lot is Wish versus Fantasy. Um,
Yeah.
if you've never sailed before, I would go with the shorter one just to get your feet wet. If you have and you like sailing, get on that boat as long as possible. Like do that 7 night. Absolutely.
Oh, I could not agree more. The more
Mhm.
nights on the ship, the better, but
Absolutely.
any amount of time is good time.
Hmm.
And it looks like those are all the pre-submitted questions. So we'll roll into some of these other
Yeah, we have a
questions.
few over here.
Does each Broadway performance time in the same day, are they the same show?
So yes, and it's typically in the same day, you'll have the same show in the Walt Disney Theater, the live action theater. You'll have that show played twice on uh, non-sea days, port days. I'm sorry. I'm like, why can I not come up with that term? You'll have that show played twice. One show better accommodates the second seating dinner, and then the second uh, stage show better accommodates first seating dinner. So it's either you do, show then dinner or dinner then show. And it's the same show. Then oftentimes on your C day, you'll also have a matinee presentation of one of those shows. It might not be the same show that's playing that night. So, if you're on the Fantasy or on the Dream, it'll most likely be Beauty and the Beast. Even if Beauty and the Beast played 2 nights ago, there'll be like a special matinee version of that show. And it'll kind of be the ship's kind of signature show that's only available on that ship, typically. There is some slight variation, of course. Entertainment is something that a lot of things can change. So entertainment does fluctuate, but generally you have the same show, and it does rotate through different nights. So it'll be a different show each night, but it'll play twice each night with a bonus matinee on your C day.
Yes, and if you can't get to the theater for whatever reason, they
Mhm.
typically will have it playing on the TV in the stateroom
Yes.
at some point. So if your
Yes.
little one knocks out, or heck, if you knock out and you need a
I know.
nap,
Yeah.
you're able
You
to
can
still
watch it
catch it
in your room.
from the comfort of your own stateroom.
Yeah.
Um, and I saw another question about Broadway
Right. I was
performances
going to
from
say, I think
Lisa
Lisa asked that
again.
later. Yeah. So, how long before should you line up to have a great seat? So listen, we could be friends, okay? I'm there at the door, like I want my 2/3 back in the center, perfect acoustic seating, and I am there about 30 minutes early, and I'm usually the first one there. Now, you could certainly get there earlier if you want. Plenty of people get there 15 minutes is when a lot of people kind of start to arrive. Plenty of people get there right at showtime. Is every seat in the theater excellent? Yes. Are there theater nerds that have their preferred spot? Yes. And I can arrive about 30 minutes early and have my choice of seating. For special needs, you don't need to be seated early. The wheelchair seating is located towards the back of the theater, and then there's also more at the front. So if you want the front seating, then you should probably arrive 15 to 30 minutes earlier, just so that you can get wheeled down there. But you don't need to arrive, extra early or have a reservation for that seating or anything like that. And as far as the actual number that accommodates, I don't honestly know. I've never seen it filled though. So, it's it, in my mind, it's like 5 to 10 in the front, and then like 10 to 20 in the back. So there's more than enough than needed as far as the number of passengers on board. If for some reason there, when you have a mobility concern, it is reported ahead of time. I'm sure if they knew that there were going to be 50 wheelchair guests on board, there would be 50 wheelchair accommodations in the theater.
Yes. And I have some family that was just on board recently, and they were saying even for the shows that were on deck, they have special sections that are roped
Absolutely.
off for
Yeah.
anyone who might have any mobility issues or any
Mhm.
additional special needs. So Disney is so
So
accommodating to make
accommodating.
sure
Yeah.
that everyone in your family has an amazing time.
Hmm.
And that's an awesome segue into Robin's question. And Robin, you picked an awesome person to ask this to because
Yeah.
this is Chrissy's wheelhouse. So
Yeah.
Robin has a special service needs daughter. Is there a nail spa experience she could have?
Yeah, so you said adult, so I would be, totally comfortable. You could book a nail appointment in the salon on board. If you're looking for something more like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique that is like designed for children, so yeah, I guess I want to make sure that I'm understanding your question correctly. So the nail salon on board, and anybody can make an appointment, and so that there's absolutely, she's more than welcome. I do suggest for all ages with special needs, if there's any sensory, go ahead and practice at home. If you want to make a nail appointment for her, you probably know she likes getting her nails done. But I have plenty of clients that want to do like a pirate makeover, a Baby Bobbity Boutique or something, and they're like, I don't know how they're going to react to like somebody, doing that. Practice. Can't hurt, right? You
Yes.
don't have to be a perfect makeup artist at home, but just practice, get familiar with it. So for an adult with special needs, you can still make an appointment in the nail salon on board. Um, as far as Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, that is, recommended for children. So you would have to speak with them on board. They've often accommodated, but it's not something that they can, book ahead of time or put in writing.
Yeah, and this is kind of Chrissy's bread and butter, or one
Yes.
of
One of
Chrissy's,
them. Yes.
yeah, one of her areas of expertise. So, Robin, if you want to reach out to
Yeah.
Chrissy
Reach
and
out. We
just
can chat.
maybe, yeah, talk a little bit more
Mhm.
about your daughter. I also love your profile picture. I Googled my symptoms, and it turns out I need to go on a Disney vacation. I'm right
Yes.
there with you.
Hmm.
So we got this question that came in about the back of the ship. Is it more rocky? And I know we've got a awesome giveaway going on right
Oh,
now with
yes. That's a
C-bands.
perfect plug.
So
Yes.
yes, so if you are worried about motion sickness, go to the website and submit into the giveaway because they're giving away 25 motion sickness packs for the whole family. So
Hmm.
feel free to do that. But Chrissy, go ahead. What's your opinion on the back of the ship?
Really, I feel like the back of the ship and the front of the ship, so all the way aft and all the way forward, they do experience more motion. Really, the turbulence is going to be mostly affected by weather. Calm seas are glorious, all aboard, and stormy seas are stormy. All aboard. So
Yes.
it's weather is really the biggest factor as far as rockiness. The back of the ship, you may experience more engine noise. That's really my bigger concern about being all the way aft. And that's for like all the way aft, right? If you're even just 3 staterooms forward, not going to notice.
Yes, agreed. And that's something you might have to find once you're on board. You might have a favorite spot. I know for
Hmm.
my family, as long as we're on the ship, we're happy.
Hmm.
But definitely talk through with your travel agent. If you're a super light sleeper, you might want to have your family be in one part of the ship versus
Absolutely.
another. So it's another part of the customizable Disney Cruise Line experience. And I know we're over on time, but I think we have a couple of, let's get to these last two questions. This one is
Oh, shoot.
so fun. I'm assuming it's supposed to say, how do you convince
Your
your
spouse.
spouse? Yes, which is a great
Yeah.
question. My better half had never been on a cruise, let alone a Disney cruise before
Hmm.
we started dating. So I love this question. Chrissy,
This
what do
is
you
so great.
think?
Well, I'm the opposite. I always, my family growing up, we did beach trips or like all inclusive trips. And my husband is an only child and his parents are older than most, and my husband's seen the whole world on a cruise ship before we even met. He was the only passenger on board a Princess cruise when he was 4, or the only child on board a Princess cruise when he was 4 for his first cruise. I mean, he's
Wow.
been truly through the whole world. And when we had our honeymoon, before I was a travel agent, when I worked as a therapist, I was like, I just don't think I'm going to like it. Okay. I'm just not going to like it. But his parents bought it for us, so I had to go. So honestly, how you convince them to go on a cruise is to get them on it. And if you're looking to just honestly, it's really hard to not like a cruise once you're on it. When you're in that planning stages, talk about everything included. Initial cost of a cruise versus like a hotel at the beach might not be very appealing, right? But your hotel at the beach does not include food. It does not include, entertainment, especially if you have kids. Okay. It does not include a babysitter from 7 a.m. to midnight, right? Like there are so many things included with a cruise that are not included with any other type of vacation. So when you're trying to convince somebody of a cruise vacation versus something else, talk about what's included. And then when you're trying to convince somebody to cruise for longer, talk about how much you loved your cruise and how much you wish you could have been on the ship, right? And all the fun things that you guys remember together from your shorter cruise. Wouldn't it just be so much better if we could do it, but like twice as much, right? Like, gosh, what if we went to Animator's Palette twice instead of once? Did you know that you could do
Yeah.
that if you just sailed for at least 5 days? Wow. Okay. Let's
Right.
do that, Be
Yeah, and
sneaky.
I always
Find out
love
his
the,
favorite thing.
yeah, you deserve it.
You deserve it.
I
Yeah.
deserve it too, but you, my spouse,
Oh,
really deserve, you work
you
so
deserve
hard.
this. Yeah. What's your spouse's favorite thing about Disney Cruise Line? And let's figure out how to get them more of it. And the answer is probably going to be a longer cruise.
Yes, I love it. We can strategize.
Yes.
And we will go ahead and make this the last question. So, all things
Okay.
taken into consideration, do you recommend an ocean view or veranda?
Mhm.
Ooh,
So again, this is something that you need to talk to yourself and talk to your family. And the question that you should ask is, what are you planning to do in your stateroom? And especially if you've never cruised before, like you might be like, well, I don't really know, but think about it. And if having like breakfast in your stateroom is on the agenda, then you should probably get a veranda. That makes it a lot easier. It'll have that outdoor space for dining, even if it's just having your coffee out there, right? If you see yourself actually spending time in there, I do think that the veranda is a better fit than the ocean view, even though the ocean view are technically a little bit bigger interior wise. Having that outdoor space really kind of has a defined separate space, especially for mealtime. It's really nice to kind of keep all your food out there until you're done with it and then bring it in so that your stateroom doesn't get foodie. Is that a word?
yes.
Foodie.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
Crummy.
about.
Yeah. And then, but the other thing is, for me personally, I'm like you said, Rebecca, if I'm on the ship, I'm good. I get the best sleep of my life in interior cruise staterooms. They're pitch
Yes.
black and it's gentle motion. It's so great. So I don't rule out ocean view either. If you are not planning on being in your room that often, then I wouldn't spend the money for a veranda and use that money, reallocate it towards something that you plan on getting value out of, whether it's a rainforest pass, whether it's a special excursion that you wouldn't normally have included. Just reallocate based on your family's preferences and needs. But generally, the big kind of yes or no factor for me in that question, specifically ocean view or veranda, is breakfast. If you're planning on eating breakfast in your stateroom, a veranda will make that a much nicer experience.
Yes, and I know I said this would be the last question, but I know
Oh,
we
that's
see
okay.
a lot of people having, the question of, what about guaranteed staterooms?
Yes.
Could you
Okay.
potentially book one of those and get either one of these staterooms?
So, no, not likely. So, you know, uh, Disney does have kind of three distinct, or well, four-ish distinct types of guaranteed bookings, and the codes are very specific. And so you really have to look at what you're booking, because even within the VGT or IGT or OGT code, there's specifics within that, right? So if you're looking at a guarantee room, if it just says GTY, then that means that it's the only thing that you don't have control over is where your room is located. So you'll have a balcony GTY, and it'll be a balcony room, and it'll be within this stateroom code. Usually it's like a 5 or 6A or something. So you can kind of know where it is on the ship, but you won't pick the exact room. And there's no restrictions as far as payment schedule and penalties. But then there's the other codes, the IGT, which is inside guarantee, OGT, ocean view guarantee, and VGT, which is veranda guarantee. And these do require a full payment at time of booking, and they are fully non-refundable immediately. So it's very important to know that you are for sure sailing. And if you book this code, then, if you book a VGT, you're going to get a veranda stateroom. It might be a Navigators veranda. So keep that in mind, that not all verandas are perfect. There are
And
some
what
that
is a Navigator or veranda?
yes.
People don't know.
There are some that are considered Navigators verandas, and these are more of like a window porthole, I guess. It's you can see outside, but you can't actually open the door and physically step outside. So it's not there's not space for you to hang out there. And then the other option is it could be a white wall veranda, which many people don't mind at all. On typically verandas, you have a wooden like railing, and then below that is glass. But on a white wall veranda, these are going to be located in the aft of the ship. The wall below that is white. Does it obstruct your view that much? No. And it is a little bit cheaper. Yeah. And then the other option is it could be an obstructed view veranda, and this is sad, right? When you go out on your veranda that you paid extra for, and there's a lifeboat like right in front of you, or like a pole or something. You don't want that. So that's the risk if you book a VGT. You'll definitely you won't have an ocean view room, but you could have a veranda that's not spectacular. And you could also have a veranda that's not spectacular when booking, if you don't do that research to make sure that the veranda room that you're booking is what you're envisioning. So again, really important to work with an agent that is familiar with all the different veranda types and veranda codes to make sure that you are getting exactly what you picture.
Absolutely. Yes. There's just so many decisions to make before you get on the ship and then once you're on the ship. So don't be afraid. Reach out to Chrissy or whoever your travel agent is and just have those conversations about what's most important to you on your sailing, just to make sure that this time off away from work and responsibilities is exactly what you want it to be. And I know we went over, so thank you guys all for hanging out with us this evening. Like we said at the start, we did record this. So if you need to refer back, feel free to, or you can always reach out to Chrissy directly. She is super duper responsive and always willing to help. But yes, thank you guys so much for your time tonight. And we will see you guys soon.
And thank you, Rebecca. It's wonderful to be with you.
Yes, great to see you.